Okay, good morning.
Good morning, Doc.
Okay, so you'll have your lecture on three different topics, no? Drugs used in hyperlipidemias or dyslipidemias, and then second, yung drugs acting in for the disorders sa gastrointestinal system, and then uh, later on at 1 o'clock yung sa drugs acting in the respiratory system, particularly sa asthma and COPD lang. So, marami actually mga drugs that act in the respiratory tract, no? But we'll focus only on drugs for asthma and COPD for now. I think those would be some of the basic drugs that you need to be familiar with. Um, so before we continue, I just like to ask uh, what time you'll be free, after your classes this afternoon to take the post-lecture quiz, because you might be using both your 8 to 10 and later on yung 1 to 2 o'clock. So is 4 o'clock okay or 5 o'clock? What time do you prefer? It's just 15 minutes na 10 item true or false. It's for both sections F and G.
Doc, for F po, may last period pa po kami ng 3 p.m. po.
3 p.m. What about section G? Any representative from section G? Anong time yung class niyo mamaya? Wala. Sige, 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock ha? Walang nag-ano sa section G. Sige, so let's start now. So we'll start at 3 o'clock and then so i-preload na lang at 3 o'clock. Ganun.
Doc, 3 o'clock po yung start po ng last period po namin.
3 o'clock hanggang anong time? 4 o'clock?
Yes po, Doc.
So hanggang 4.
Actually, Doc, for micro po, audit exam po kami lang later. So we might the exam closes at 3:35 po.
So 4 o'clock na lang.
Pero Doc, meron po, sabay po ba dapat with G po, Doc? May nag-message.
Yes.
Sabay po sa G.
Oo. So 4
I'm not
p.m.
sure po sa sked ng G, Doc, pero section F, I'm not sure sa sked po nila, Doc, pero section F po kasi may vacant po kami ng
3:30. Pwede na kayo.
Opo.
So may pharma lab daw sila hanggang 4. So, hanggang ano na lang, 4 o'clock na lang. So you preload at 4, you'll start at 4:10, and then you'll end at just 4:25. It's just 15 minutes lang naman. Okay? Agree yun, ha? Sige. So let's start now with drugs used for dyslipidemias. So we know that atherosclerosis is one of the leading causes of morbidity and mortality, particularly in the West, but also actually even here in our country. So yung mga didiscuss natin ng mga drugs ngayon, these are drugs that are able to prevent the sequelae of atherosclerosis, MI, angina, strokes, and would hopefully also decrease mortality of patients who already have cardiovascular disease and dyslipidemia. So while these drugs are generally safe and effective, they can also cause problems, including mga important na drug interactions and adverse reactions, particularly sa liver and the skeletal muscle. So these are the groups of drugs that we will be discussing in the next few minutes. And meron ding mga drugs kasi that also are specific for particular primary hyperlipoproteinemias. And towards the end, so yun lang yung medyo madadagdag mo dito sa figure na to. So we know that premature or accelerated na atherosclerosis is highly associated with high concentrations ng iba't ibang plasma lipoproteins. So particularly high LDL levels and triglycerides and low HDL levels. So we are familiar with the transport of lipids from the liver to the periphery and also from the periphery back to the liver through the action of your different lipoproteins and these transport proteins. So another form of CPD is chylomicronemia. So this is when there's occurrence of chylomicrons even during fasting. So it's an autosomal trait associated with high incidence of pancreatitis and is generally managed by restricting total fat intake of the diet. Now, these are just examples of primary causes or conditions that cause dyslipidemias, abnormal lipid profile panels. And you don't need to memorize as of now yung mga specific na conditions na ito. Just note that these are yung mga primary causes. These are genetic conditions or wherein there are mutations in the apolipoproteins or their receptors or pwedeng sa transport mechanisms or maybe in lipid metabolizing enzymes. So usually for these cases, we give combination of your drugs for dyslipidemia. So, and we all know that the regulation of plasma lipoproteins involves a complex interplay ng dietary intake, the hepatic processing, and utilization in peripheral tissues. We also know that the synthesis of hepatic cholesterol is a tightly regulated process. So, later on you will see, because of this tightly regulated process of hepatic cholesterol synthesis in vivo within the liver, it's actually taken advantage yung mga compensatory mechanisms para mapababa yung circulating na LDL and triglycerides and to elevate your HDL levels. So secondary causes of dyslipidemias would primarily be associated with diet, certain endocrine conditions, like for example, associated, di ba, ang mga dyslipidemias in patients with diabetes, for example, and other diseases of the liver and the kidneys. So this figure shows to you the metabolism of lipoproteins from the liver, yung mga of hepatic origin. So yung mga dark or heavy arrows dito, siya yung this would represent the primary pathways. So you will see in the left side yung mga from the Golgi apparatus, diyan lumalabas o nasisikreate yung nascent or newly formed na VLDL. Yeah. So the nascent VLDL that are excreted from the liver, so they would acquire. So remember, this is the process of accretion, di ba? Yung parang nagdadagdagan siya ng iba't ibang components or apolipoproteins and is transformed to different forms. So for example, from itong nascent na VLDL, eventually when they are secreted into the blood, they acquire additional ApoC lipoproteins and ApoE from HDL. And itong VLDL na to eventually will be converted to VLDL remnants by lipolysis. through the action of the lipoprotein lipase which are associated sa capillaries sa peripheral tissue. In this process, yung mga C apolipoproteins and yung a portion of the ApoE that was initially integrated into the VLDL are given back to HDL. And then some of these VLDL remnants are converted to LDL by the loss of the triglycerides and the loss of the ApoE. So, doon na lumalabas yung LDL. Now, take note that yung major pathway para ma-degrade yung LDL from the blood involves yung endocytosis ng LDL by the LDL receptors in the liver and the peripheral tissues for which yung ApoB100 yung ligand. So later on you will see na very important itong process ng endocytosis by the liver ng LDL para mapababa itong circulating na LDL ng patients. Okay? So in treating dyslipidemias, the two important strategies would be diet and pharmacologic management. So, cholesterol and saturated fat intake are the primary dietary factors that contribute sa mataas na levels ng plasma lipoprotein. So, logically, reducing intake of these fats will improve the lipid profile ng ating patients. Another substance that is usually avoided is alcohol. So because alcohol is associated with raises the triglyceride and VLDL levels. So this should be avoided in patients with hypertriglyceridemia. Now, in terms of the drug treatment, it's actually individualized and is based on the specific lipid abnormality. Kasi pwedeng LDL yung primarily involved or yung triglycerides yung primarily involved or pwedeng low HDL yung primarily involved. So, yung mga drugs that would be most effective in lowering the LDL levels would include the HMG-CoA reductase inhibitors, otherwise known as your statins. Then you have resins, ezetimibe, and followed by niacin. On the other hand, yung mga effective in lowering triglyceride and VLDL and increase HDL levels would be yung mga fibric acid derivatives, niacin, and omega-3 fatty acids. But if you look at this table, the next table, you see that we have several groups of statins. You will see they have also different degrees of efficacy. So, meron dito mga nagpapababa ng LDL levels, no, by as much as 50%. So, ibig sabihin nito, it reduces the baseline LDL cholesterol from 25 to 50% from the initial na LDL levels. Ang pinakamababa na efficacy would be fluvastatin, no, based on this table. You will also note that yung pinaka efficacious in raising HDL levels would be niacin. So, however, we should also take note, no, na a lot of times itong mga agents are given in combination. But we need to be wary about certain combinations because this can also contribute to the development of certain adverse effects. Okay, so this table is a good overview for you to see yung mga general na efficacies ng ating mga drugs for dyslipidemia. This figure just shows to you yung mga different sites of action ng ating mga anti-lipemic agents. Similar lang din ito, iba lang yung formatting. So we will be discussing these mechanisms as we go through the different drugs. Okay, so let's start with your statins or the HMG-CoA reductase inhibitors. So normally, we know that the rate-limiting step sa hepatic cholesterol synthesis is the conversion of HMG-CoA to mevalonate by the enzyme HMG-CoA reductase. So this is the in vivo synthesis of cholesterol in the liver. So yung mga statins, these are structural analogs of HMG-CoA, and this would competitively inhibit this enzyme. So imbis na yung enzyme acting on the HMG-CoA, nandun siya sa nandun siya magbabind sa statins. So hindi mako-convert yung HMG-CoA to mevalonate, thereby reducing the hepatic cholesterol synthesis. Yeah. So these are the common examples. So lahat sila may statins. Some are available, some are prodrugs like lovastatin and simvastatin, while some are already active as given. Now, you might think that since these drugs reduce hepatic cholesterol synthesis, siya yung primary factor para bumaba yung total cholesterol levels ng patient. But this actually contributes only to a small amount dun sa cholesterol lowering effect ng statins. Ang much greater effect na bibigay ng mga statins is due to the response ng liver doon sa pagbaba ng hepatic cholesterol pool within the liver itself. So when the liver senses na mababa na yung cholesterol within it itself, it especially yung ang ginagawa niya is it upregulates or increases the synthesis of your LDL receptors. So this increase in the LDL receptors in the liver would increase the endocytosis from the blood ng LDL. So this would now clear LDL and VLDL remnants from the blood. So yeah. So note that necessary na they're able to generate functional LDL receptors. Meron kasing mga genetic abnormalities na statins may not be effective because they are not able genetically to produce functional LDL receptors. So but ito yung meaning ng statement na to na kailangan merong functional kasi merong mga genetic disorders na hindi nakaka-form. And in this case, hindi magiging masyadong effective ang mga statins. So your statins are also possess anti-atherosclerotic effects, anti-inflammatory effects, and they can also prevent bone loss. In patients with itong anti-atherosclerotic and anti-inflammatory effects, this would contribute to what we call plaque stabilization, yung mga atheromatous plaques. Remember, ang pathophysiology ng myocardial infarction or yung mga unstable angina is there's a partial or even pagka elevated MI, yung mga obstruction from thrombus formation. And kaya nagkakaroon ng thrombus formation is because yung atheromatous plaque nag-rupture siya. So what your statins would actually do is that they can strengthen or stabilize the plaque so that hindi sila ganun ka-easily mara-rupture in the presence of high blood flow, for example. So kaya manonotice nyo pag kunyari may patient na being treated for myocardial infarction or unstable angina, binibigyan na sila ng statins. And yung goal nun is not to lower directly your LDL levels, but also provide plaque stabilization effects. So para hindi mag-rupture yung iba pang remaining na plaques. So these agents, as we said earlier, can dramatically reduce LDL cholesterol levels, and more so when used with other cholesterol-lowering drugs. So, sabi ko nga, these are generally well tolerated, and they are able to reduce the risk of coronary events and even also strokes. So, yung mga matataas ang efficacy nasa table kanina, di ba, yung rosuvastatin, atorvastatin, simvastatin, tapos yung hindi masyadong efficacious, yung fluvastatin. So when you look at, eventually when you look at your clinical practice guidelines, what you will note that meron doong mga low intensity, moderate intensity, and high intensity statins. And yung intensity na yun is actually more related to dose. So, like for example, makita nyo sa listings doon, yung simvastatin is seen both as moderate and high intensity. Pero, nagmagkaiba sila ng dose. Okay, so ang point ko, yung intensity ng statins is both based on the type of statin, but also on the dose. Okay, so, and yung intensity ng statin na binibigay sa mga pasyente, nakadepende sa risk stratification. Kung meron niyang computation, you can input it in a formula or in a calculator online. Tapos, mako-compute doon yung kanyang cardiovascular risk score. And then, minsan automatic siya depending on the website that you go to, kung ano yung intensity ng statins na ibibigay for the patient. So, pero hindi pa naman natin yung goal na yun. So, ang importante lang is we know that there's such a thing. And when you go to your clinical therapeutics or in IM, dapat yun yung gagawin nyo para malaman kung ano yung statin for a particular patient based on the risk factors. So aside from lowering LDL levels, they can also decrease triglycerides and increase HDL levels. So in terms of adverse effects, common sa kanila would be elevation of liver enzymes and statin-related myopathy. But when you look again at your clinical practice guidelines, hindi ibig sabihin na nagkaroon ka ng elevation ng liver enzymes or creatine kinase, i-discontinue mo na yung drug. So meron ding algorithm na pine-present doon. Like for example, sa liver enzyme, they need to be elevated, I think more equal to or more than 3 times the upper limit ng normal before you discontinue. So yun. And then, but still, if you discontinue it, these patients may still need an alternative. So nagbibigay din doon ng mga list of alternatives. Okay, so you can look for that when you go to, when you read up on the clinical practice guidelines. Same also with the creatine kinase and statin-related myopathy. So, ang importante lang din naman dito, the reason why we want to address statin-related myopathy is the risk of it progressing to rhabdomyolysis, myoglobinuria, and eventual renal insufficiency or nephrotoxic effect ng myoglobinuria. Yeah. So, itong mga natin, before I forget, naalala nyo na meron ding mga genetic polymorphisms associated with increased levels of statin-related myopathy. Yan, your genetic polymorphisms, organic and ion transporters. Remember? So yun yung associated sa hepatic sinusoids, diba? Para sa uptake ng mga statins. So to actually be specific for simvastatin, na pagka may reduced function doon, then hindi na uptake sa liver yung drug. So mas mataas yung exposure ng patient to statins. Kaya mas mataas yung risk for statin-related myopathy. So normally, pagka merong ganong genetic polymorphism, ina-advise na lang na mag-change to another statin, other than simvastatin. So statins are metabolized by the cytochrome P450 system. So drugs or food that inhibit the activity of this enzyme can increase the risk of the mentioned adverse effects. Lastly, statins can interfere with myelination and therefore are teratogenic. So we avoid statins in pregnant patients or even those who are, desirous of pregnancy. So next, you have your bile acid resins. So normally, more than 90% ng bile acids, which are metabolites of cholesterol, these are reabsorbed in the gastrointestinal tract and are returned to the liver for recycling. So itong mga bile acid resins, these are non-absorbable polymers that bind to and prevent the recycling of bile acids and other similar steroids. So pine-prevent niya yung absorption in the intestine for recycling. So what this will do now, so by preventing yung recycling ng bile acids, itong mga resins madadivert yung hepatic cholesterol synthesis of new bile acids. So pagka nag-synthesize ka ng bagong bile acids, ang effect niya is papababain niya yung cholesterol within the liver. So nadadivert kasi nga yung synthesis to bile acid production rather than to cholesterol synthesis. And again, this would now increase the synthesis of LDL receptors in the liver para ma-increase yung removal ng LDL lipoproteins from the blood. So yun yung kanyang mga compensatory mechanisms to lower LDL levels. Now, while ito yung kanyang effect, actually very modest lang ang reduction ng LDL na nagagawa ng mga bile acid resins. And they have little effect on HDL or triglycerides. So modest effect sa LDL, little effect sa HDL and triglycerides. And even in some patients with familial combined hyperlipidemia, pwedeng actually tumaas pa yung triglycerides and VLDL. So we avoid bile acid resins in patients with familial combined hyperlipidemia. Okay. So aside from patients with hypercholesterolemia, the other important use ng bile acid resins is in patients with cholestasis and bile salt accumulation. So this would occur, this type of cholestasis can occur in several conditions, whether physiologic or pathologic. So one of the common causes ng physiologic na cholestasis is cholestasis in pregnancy. And sa mga ano naman, pwedeng pathologic conditions, pwedeng may mass, obstruction from gallstones or tumors or certain types of cancers can cause cholestasis pagka nagkakaroon ng obstruction. So important adverse effects ng bile acid resins would be bloating, constipation, unpleasant gritty taste. So yan yung common na adverse effects. Now, associated din ito sa mga important na drug interaction because they inhibit bile acid recycling, the absorption of vitamins, especially mga fat-soluble vitamins and drugs that are mentioned here may be impaired by the bile acid resins. So, next group of drugs would be itong ezetimibe, which is an inhibitor ng absorption or uptake ng cholesterol and phytosterols in the intestines. So itong ezetimibe, this is converted in the liver to its active glucuronide form, and this active metabolite inhibits a transporter that mediates the gastrointestinal uptake ng cholesterol and phytosterols. Itong mga, ano ba itong mga phytosterols na to? These are plant sterols that would normally enter the GI epithelial cell but are immediately transported back into the intestinal lumen. So when you prevent the absorption of dietary cholesterol, anong nangyayari? And it also inhibit the cholesterol that is excreted, reabsorption of cholesterol that is excreted in the bile. So ezetimibe would reduce the cholesterol in the tightly regulated hepatic pool. Again, increasing now the synthesis ng high affinity receptor sa liver to increase now the removal of LDL from the blood. So monotherapy hanggang mga 20% no yung na-remove, napapa-lower ng ezetimibe sa LDL levels. And when given with your statins, so they can improve their LDL lowering ability. So use nito again, combination for hypercholesterolemia and also for phytosterolemia. So this is a rare genetic disorder which results from impaired export ng phytosterols. These agents are well tolerated. However, yung kanilang combination, mataas, na-increase na yung risk ng hepatotoxicity. So, this is a combination that should be closely observed because of the elevation ng liver enzymes. And itong mga drug interactions na to, no, yung fibrates can increase serum concentrations of the glucuronide form ng ezetimibe, while cholestyramine can reduce yung active levels, yung levels ng active form ng ezetimibe. So these are important na drug interactions. Next would be niacin or nicotinic acid. So this drug has multiple mechanisms of action sa liver, sa adipose tissue, at saka sa capillary endothelial cells. So sa liver, so ang ginagawa niya, no, it reduces the VLDL synthesis, and eventually it also reduces the LDL levels. Kaya so walang kinalaman masyado in this part yung sa compensatory, kasi kung mababa yung precursor ng LDL, syempre bababa yung yung eventual na concentration ng LDL. In the adipose tissue naman, so ang ginagawa niya is that it activates a signaling pathway that reduces the activity ng hormone-sensitive lipase. And the reduction in this activity will result in decreased plasma fatty acid and triglyceride levels. So reduction ng hormone-sensitive lipase activity. So consequently, pagka mapapababa mo yung yung fatty acid and triglyceride levels, bababa rin yung LDL formation, and there is a reduction in LDL levels. Then another activity nga niya yung sa capillary endothelial cells, na-increase niya yung clearance ng VLDL by the activity of the lipoproteins. So lipoprotein lipase. So the increased activity ng lipoprotein lipase sa capillary endothelial cells will account for a reduction ng triglycerides and also the VLDL. So ito namang, di ba sa table kanina sinabi natin na yung HDL levels, in niacin yung may pinakamataas na ability to increase HDL levels. And ang mechanism niya is actually more on a reduction ng catabolism rather than increase in synthesis. Yeah, so reduction ng catabolism ng HDL results in increase in its activity. So itong last na part, hindi naman yan masyadong related, itong fibrinogen at saka TPA activity in terms of the LDL and the lipid profile ng patients. Yeah. So clinical use, so it can lower LDL and triglyceride levels and raise cholesterol HDL levels. So kaya maganda ito, no, para ma-improve yung HDL levels. Many times kasi, di ba, sabi natin kanina, modest lang yung pagtaas ng HDL na compensatory ng ibang mga drugs. Pero ito, maganda siyang ibigay in combination. Although again, there are some issues in terms of adverse effects kapag pinag-combine sila with statins. Important na adverse effects. Ito yung pinaka-common, yung cutaneous flushing, which may also be associated with pruritus. The cutaneous flushing is mediated by prostaglandin release. And while eventually the patient will develop tolerance to this flushing na adverse effect, this can be prevented naman by giving NSAIDs. So when the aspirin or any of your NSAIDs can reduce cutaneous flushing. So pwede rin mag-cause ng dose-dependent na GI and other skin conditions. Moderate niacin can cause moderate elevations of liver enzymes and severe hepatotoxicity. There's a specific preparation na extended release that is associated with severe liver function. So it's not the drug itself, but the preparation. Tapos another issue, yung increase in uric acid levels and carbohydrate tolerance. So we should watch out sa mga pasyente na may mataas ang uric acid, baka mag-precipitate ng gout, and in diabetic patients. So, pero hindi ibig sabihin na contraindicated. So ibig sabihin lang nito, you may need to monitor the patient more closely. So next are the fibric acid derivatives. So dalawa lang naman yung examples dyan, gemfibrozil and fenofibrates, yung mga common. So fibric acid derivatives are ligands of the peroxisome proliferator activated receptor alpha protein. So it's a receptor that regulates gene transcription ng mga yung genes that are involved in lipid metabolism. You will encounter again this type of receptor sa mga anti-diabetic medications. Pero I think ang PPAR gamma siya. Ito PPAR alpha. Okay, so yung mga if I remember, thiazolidinediones. So pero ito, this is more on lipid metabolism. So yun more on glucose. Now, this would have different actions in the adipose tissue and in the liver. So sa adipose tissue, increase synthesis ng lipoprotein lipase, which would increase the clearance of your triglyceride-rich lipoproteins. So ito yung actually primary effect niya. And that's why you see later, ang kanilang malaking effect is on lowering triglyceride levels. And then for the other part ng lipid profile, modest reduction din. Pero ang primary na naging effect niya is elevation ng, lowering of the triglyceride levels. So in the liver, so these are the other actions. So stimulate fatty acid oxidation, to limiting now the supply ng triglycerides, and eventually it decreases VLDL synthesis. Tapos yung decrease in the ApoC3 expression impedes your VLDL clearance, and increase in the ApoA1 and ApoA2 increases now your HDL levels. So note, sabi ko nga kanina, they have little to no effect on LDL concentrations. Little to no effect sa LDL, pero pwede nga niyang pataasin yung LDL in certain genetic disorders, particularly itong familial combined hyperlipoproteinemia. So that's an important issue with your fibric acid derivatives. So mainly ang ano niya, ang use niya, I want to emphasize, is in the treatment of hypertriglyceridemia. And sometimes they can be combined again with other statins para magkaroon ng additive na cholesterol lowering effect. Pero we should take note that pwede nga siyang mag-increase ng LDL sa mga patients with familial combined hyperlipoproteinemia. Okay? Last, sa toxicity, nausea, skin rashes, decrease in WBC or hematocrit. Patients who are taking anticoagulants or antiplatelet drugs, pwede mo potentiate yung risk ng bleeding with fibrates. There's also an increased risk of cholesterol gallstone formation sa mga pasyente nagtitake ng fibrates. And again, an increase ng risk ng myopathy if combined with statins. So, yung concept natin ng combination therapy should be balanced with the fact that sabi nga natin, mag-i-improve yung lowering ability at pwedeng ma-minimize din yung toxicity ng isang drug kasi nga you're combining it also with another drug. Pero ang while they provide certain advantage, kailangan wary nga tayo dun sa mga certain combinations. So for example, yung resins, they can interfere with absorption of certain statins. So pagka ganito, pwedeng ibigay yung statins 1 hour before or 4 hours after mabigay yung resins so that absorption is not impeded. And then ito ngang statins, pag pinag-combine siya with either fibrates or niacin, pwede ba increase yung risk ng myopathy. So, and a while ago we mentioned yung increased risk ng hepatotoxicity rin with other drug combinations. Okay? So, last lecture may nagtanong pala regarding the statins na one advice that is given is yung mga statins kailangan ibigay at bedtime because the hepatic cholesterol synthesis occurs at night. So dun siya dapat daw nag-work and therefore dapat ibibigay yung drug at bedtime. This is true for short-acting statins. But for the long-acting statins, hindi na relevant yon kasi long-acting naman siya. So, hindi na kailangan na at night i-take yung mga long-acting. Pero pag short-acting, yun yung kailangan i-take at night. Okay? So, next. So, these are just some drugs that are restricted to patients with homozygous familial hypercholesterolemia, which addresses the specific genetic disorders. So lumitapide is an inhibitor ng microsomal triglyceride transport protein, while Vipomersen are antisense oligonucleotides that targets the ApoB100. So these are, we don't commonly see this because this will be specific for patients who have homozygous familial hypercholesterolemia. So this table just summarizes the more commonly used drugs for this lipidemia. This is another table that summarizes these drugs from, I think this is from a reviewer that I found. So para mas madaling ma-recall yung mga characteristics. I just want to focus on dito sa baba, no? You can just read on the fish oils and the omega-3 fatty acids. And I think you will discuss din naman again when you go to your nutrition in your third year. I want to focus on the PCSK9 inhibitors. Yeah, so these are relatively new drugs. These are humanized monoclonal antibodies against PCSK9. So ano ba yung PCSK9 na yan? So it's a product ng liver that is secreted into the plasma. And when it binds to the LDL receptor, it facilitates yung endocytosis niya back into the liver and degradation in the lysosomes. So when you inhibit this protein, the opposite process will occur. No? Marireduce yung degradation ng LDL receptor. So tataas yung clearance ng LDL cholesterol. So, na-discover itong PCSK9 na to kasi may nakita silang family with hypercholesterolemia pero wala sila noong common genetic mutations sa LDL receptor or the apoprotein B100 gene. And it was eventually discovered that they had a gain of function of the PCSK9. So, pag gain of function, ibig sabihin very hyperactive yung PCSK. Kasi maraming napoproduce na PCSK9, konti lang yung kanilang LDL receptors kasi madali siyang degrade. So kaya nag-develop ng drug that would that would inhibit this protein. So ito yung mga indications niya, no? Hindi ko na masyadong tatanungin ito. These are relatively new drugs. They can be used actually also kahit na wala sila ng mga primary hyperlipidemias. Pero yun yung unang naging indication niya for those patients with this type of primary hyperlipidemia. So, ang limitation lang naman nito, ang limitation siyempre yung cost. Tapos yung subcutaneous injection niya every 2 weeks. Every 2 to 4 weeks. Pero if you look at the efficacy, by as much as 50 to 60%. So kanina 'di ba at most yung mga high potency at yung high intensity na statins 20 to 50%. So ito up to 50 to 60% yung reduction na nagagawa niya. Okay? I think this is the last slides na for your statin and the drugs for his lipidemia. We can have a short 5-minute break before we proceed with the next topics on GIT, drugs acting on the GIT.